till the day of my death, to my very last breath. I'm gonna love you when no one's left. Come fly with me, baby. Yeah, I'm the one with the S on my chest. Forget about your ex. He don't know what love is. He just failed the test. Plus, he don't treat.
And we're live.
Hello and welcome back to a Hey Baby, Want to See My Evil Super Dick episode of the First Time Watchers podcast.
Because we like to watch.
My name is Tim Costa.
I'm Romano de Silva.
This is Walter Vinci.
And what we like to do on the FTW podcast is find a movie that none of us have seen, watch it together, and then discuss. These movies could be new, they could be old, or something that's on all our lists of shame. If you'd like to send feedback, remember to email us at firsttimewatchers@gmail.com. Hey, guess what with the feedback, guys?
Come on.
Nothing.
Come on.
Hey, may I just say how happy I was to see on my podcast feed a new episode of Film Seekers featuring Neil Ramsey?
Oh.
Yeah.
What? I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I think my thing stopped syncing because they hadn't uploaded in so long.
I think when he did the intro, he said it was 18 months since the last episode.
Wow.
He had
I had no idea. It didn't even pop up for me.
Yeah, he had a guest on to talk about the London Film Festival. So a lot of good tidbits there. Long episode, but good. Always good to hear Neil's voice.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to
absolutely.
download.
Give this a listen.
Absolutely. Anyways, so there's feedback for Neil. No feedback for us. Yep.
Come on, people.
Moving on.
You can do better than that.
Yeah. Well, in this episode, we'll be continuing our Christopher Reeve Superman series by discussing his 1983 film, Superman 3. But before we get to that, it is time for Yay or Nay. This is the part of the show where we discuss what we have seen recently on our own. I'll go first. I have two things. What should I start with? I'll start with the poorer film first. So Luc Besson came out with a film earlier this year. Do you remember?
Yeah, he did. And I remember looking at the trailer going, no.
It was like a soft reboot of La Femme Nikita.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
something like that. It's like she walks into a dining room and like just starts tearing it up.
It's funny that the first trailer that they showed was pretty much the only true action scene of the movie.
Oh, boy.
For a movie that's 2 hours long, by the way, and it's called Anna, A-N-N-A, Anna. Beneath Anna Poniatava's striking beauty lies a secret that will unleash her indelible strength and skill to become one of the world's most feared government assassins. Played by Sasha Luss. I have no idea who that is. Helen Mirren's in this, and so is Luke Evans.
Okay.
No. It's not great. It's like Luke watched Atomic Blonde and said, hey, I could do that. Except he really couldn't. Which, I know the movie Lucy is rather divided, especially on the show, because I'm the lone defender of Lucy on the show. But I think it goes to show you what a miracle that movie is, possibly due to a more cohesive script, control of tone, and mostly Scarlett Johansson. Because, that's not to say that Sasha Luss doesn't have talent. I think she holds her own in this, and I respect her ability to have like a nice screen presence. I just wanted her in a better film. The editing style of this goes back and forth between time periods, and takes place between like 5 years. It starts off in 1985 and then cuts to 5 years later. But it tells the story of how Anna got into this to become an assassin, and by going back and forth and in her training into the current time period and all that. So it didn't really do any service to the storyline. I just think a linear script would have been much better. There is a cool montage of her committing assassinations in the middle of the movie with a really good song, but overall it's just more boring than anything else. Despite some recent failures like this and Valerian, Besson has still earned my viewership because like the next Lucy or Fifth Element or Leon could be right around the corner, right?
This is true. That's the thing with Luc Besson. I do have a bit of blind faith in the man because he's more hits than misses for me.
Yeah.
He's, Space Jail and Taken.
First off, he didn't direct Space Jail. He produced.
Oh, he didn't direct it. No. Well, either way, his name's attached to Space Jail, which I loved. Taken,
produced.
All right, but he's got a pretty good track record with stuff that his name's been attached to. So I'll give you a pass. This is just a slump.
Yeah, what's really distracting in this movie too is that it takes place mostly in 1990, but the cell phones that they use wouldn't have been invented for like another 10 years. There's like ever specific cars, but all the wide shots, all the cars in the background are all modern cars. I was like, what the fuck is happening here? And so those little touches take you out of the film, which is frustrating. It's frustrating. I don't know. Will I see something else that Sasha Luss is in? I guess. I don't know. I wasn't annoyed by her, but it's a nay for Anna. I'm sorry. So
Tim, next time, please include Lucy in his list of recent
how
failures.
dare you, sir? I'm just gonna rewatch that movie to spite you. Well, going back to my best of decade contenders, I rewatched Moonlight. I think this movie is the textbook definition of movies as empathy machines, as described by the late great Roger Ebert. By the time we get to the last part of the second act, I think we feel a lot of that pain and hurt that Chiron has experienced, and that we really understand and recognize the decisions he makes. You know, when he goes into school after he was beaten up, what he does, yeah, and we don't judge him. You know, he's a human who has lived a life of forced shame and unfulfilled longing by that point. You know, throughout his whole life. So I just think that Barry Jenkins' ability to put us in the headspace of this young man is remarkable. He really guides us along with kind of an effortless grace and shows us those touchstones of a life that makes him the man he becomes. You know, Hermano, you've seen Boyhood, right?
I loved it.
Yeah, this movie reminded me of Boyhood. And I think it's much better than Boyhood because it's more focused on specific time periods in this guy's life, where Boyhood shows him growing up. You can almost feel the gimmick, because that's another movie I rewatched recently. You can almost feel the gimmick of it a little bit. It's not overbearing or anything at all, but it may also just, with somebody who's watching who has that knowledge of Boyhood being filmed over the course of 12 years, if you have that in the back of your mind, it could influence how you view the movie. But I think that movie doesn't do as good of a job as focusing on specific moments that show us and define who this person becomes, where Moonlight does a much better job of that. Specifically 3 points, 3 ages. And each of the 3 actors who depict Chiron, I think, do a great job. They really play well against their counterparts, from Marshala Ali to Andre Holland. Pacing and photography, they work really well with the story and the structure. And it is one of the best films of the decade. It'll probably make my top 25. It's really, really great. And it is a movie that I think was deserving of making our film of the year in 2016. And Wally, this was your number 1 film of that year, wasn't it?
It was my number 1 film of that year. I want to revisit it to see how I feel on it on a second watch.
Yeah, I believe it's streaming on Netflix. I got the Blu-ray from the library, and but I think it's still streaming on Netflix, so you might want to catch up on that pretty quickly.
Will do.
Hermano.
All right, I only got one thing. It was I believe only my second time watching this. It's from 2010, Shutter Island.
Oh, weird. I watched this over the summer.
Yeah, I thought maybe I remembered you talking about having watched it again recently. Was it like a second time for you as well?
Yes.
Or? Yeah, it's weird. Like I forgot. I didn't think it was as old as it was. I was surprised to see it came out in 2010. I thought it was maybe 5 years old. So yeah, I was like, wow, how have I not seen this in like almost 10 years? Like I sort of remember liking it, but then I watched it and I kind of remembered maybe what kept me away is like I feel like once you kind of know the ending, it feels like the only real reason to watch it again is like one of those films where once you know the ending, you just kind of watch it again to look at all the clues that were there, or if there were any clues there that were maybe hinting at, you know, where the film was going. And I definitely noticed a lot, especially in the beginning with the Mark Ruffalo character. You pick up on little acting cues that he's giving as I don't want to give anything away, but like he's acting in a way that it kind of gives it away that he's not maybe like a seasoned policeman.
Right.
But I'll be the synopsis. In 1954, U.S. Marshal investigates the disappearance of a murderer who escaped from a hospital for the criminally insane. Directed by Martin Scorsese, of course. Really good performances overall. Like I said, I really was like Mia just kind of wanted to watch kind of a thriller, mystery type film. We saw that this was streaming. We both kind of just said, oh yeah, we've only watched it the one time. Let's see if it it holds up or if it's as good as we remember. And I do think I feel like I liked it a bit more this time, even knowing the ending. I kind of forgot a lot of the stuff that I didn't realize was as good as it was like the score. It's really bombastic at times.
Oh, you know what it is? It's Hitchcock. It's Scorsese doing Hitchcock so much that this movie actually made me wonder if he wanted to shoot this in black and white because of the way the shadows work in a lot of the frames. I could have sworn that it would have looked just as good or maybe better in black and white.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree, but I can see definitely the Hitchcock influence, like not just with the score, but just kind of
the first person, the framing, the pans.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what I thought about when I saw this, and which is funny too because for the longest time I thought Cape Fear was done by Brian De Palma, and that was done by Scorsese. And I think he was trying to do a De Palma film, which is also funny because De Palma spent most of his career aping Hitchcock.
Yeah, it's a lot of borrowing going on in Hollywood, or influence being derived from other films. But yeah, like it was really interesting, especially certain conversations like take on an entirely new context once you know the ending. Like the Jackie Earle Haley character comes in, like start of the third act essentially, and that entire conversation, knowing the ending, it completely like it's basically spelling out exactly what's going to happen in the end. Like it's weird.
It's funny
the way it plays out.
Yeah, it's funny when you mention that kind of looking at a film from that lens. Like my go-to for twist endings is The Sixth Sense, and that film is infinitely rewatchable no matter how well you know the ending.
Yeah, I've definitely seen Sixth Sense many more times. I probably helps that it's much shorter. Also, I think in recent memory, that's the one film that there was a lot of buzz around. I remember hearing it. M. Night Shyamalan was just brand new on the scene. There was a lot of different things circling around that film, and it is a quality film, and it's really interesting to kind of again another film you can rewatch and kind of be like, wait, does everything add up? Like, is there any slip up in the film where it's like, oh, that's a plot hole right there because someone notices something or someone reacts to Bruce Willis in a different way. But in this one, you don't have to worry about that as much because actually, you know what? They kind of do share a lot in common. Now that I kind of really think about it, because the Leonardo DiCaprio character is a lot like the Bruce Willis character in Sixth Sense, but slightly dealing with one's dealing with a bit more supernatural, where this one's dealing more of like a psychological element.
I think this movie has a lot of ideas in it, but what is Scorsese trying to say? Do you think?
I don't know if he's really trying to say anything. Like I think it literally is like it's based on a novel, right?
Dennis Lehane novel. That's right.
Yeah, so I think it was just an adaptation of maybe a novel that he appreciated. Again, this is, for my money, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say lesser Scorsese, but it doesn't, have the, like it doesn't have like that thing like Goodfellas has, or even like films like Casino. Like those just seem inherently Scorsese to me, or this just seems like, I feel like anyone could have really made this film. Like it didn't have to be
I agree.
Scorsese. And I don't know that he really adds any like Scorsese touch that I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally tell this was a Martin Scorsese film or anything like that. Like this, I don't know. It just feels like a film that he probably just did just to do, or maybe he was under contract and needed one more film or something for some studio and is like, sure, I'll do Shutter Island.
Yeah, it's certainly not as good as The Departed.
Oh, you're alone in that boat, my friend. Because you know what's funny though is Departed has that one rat at the end. There's a scene in this film where Leonardo DiCaprio deals with a lot of rats, surrounded by rats in one scene, and I was like, Martin says he loves rats.
For people who have seen the movie Don't Look Now, the early '70s Donald Sutherland film, I think they would know where I'm coming from when there's a pretty good Don't Look Now homage at the end of Shutter Island.
Oh, that was the one negative I would give the film. I thought at times like the editing was a little bit wonky, like especially at the end. Like I feel like there's like a sort of epilogue-y moment with Leonardo DiCaprio and Mark Ruffalo's character.
Yes.
And I feel like that it feels so rushed as to like, I mean, it's easy to pick up on what's going on in that scene.
Yep.
But I feel like they rushed it so hard. And it's funny because when I was watching the film, I'm like, all right, this is the ending, you know, like this is where the ending starts. And then I looked and it's like, there's 26 minutes left. I'm like, what the hell is going to happen in 26 minutes? I remember this being the ending. Like, and then I remembered, oh, okay, this ending really goes on for a long time. It literally is like 20 minutes long.
And the whole, see, I also get frustrated with over explanations of explaining everything to you. Like the whole ending at the top of the lighthouse is a bit much. It's like you have to. It goes on for so long. It forces you to think of the logistics of the whole thing.
Yeah. Again, it's like literally an exposition nuclear bomb. Like it's 20 minutes of explaining how everything that's happened makes total sense, and this is what was happening. And every time, you know, the Leonardo DiCaprio questions something, Ben Kingsley comes back with a perfectly reasonable explanation.
On like a board, he has like a board with another sheet of paper that shows exactly.
Yeah, it's seriously, it's like literally like, all right, here's a diagram of everything that's happened. And the thing is too is like if you really think about this film, it happens over the course of what, like 2 days?
I guess.
The logistics alone. I mean, holy shit! Like, I mean, a literal production is being put on, and I'm just like, oh, I'm dipping into spoiler territory here, but like, it's like insane. Especially the one moment where involving a car, I'm like, did they really set that up?
Right.
Like, has he done this before? They said it's the second time. I'm like, oh my god, like, I don't know, man. you got to not really think hard about the logistics, or else it kind of maybe starts to fall apart a little bit. But overall, still enjoyed it. Still a yay. Recommend it.
Who will take the lead and roll it to a tree? Oh, look now, it ain't you and me. Who will work the field with his hand? Put it back to the plow. Who will take a mountain and give it to the sea?
Are you guys ready to start the show?
I'm good to go.
Walter?
Yes, my sweet.
Are you ready to start the show?
Just give me a few more minutes to calibrate this Android detector.
Oh, okay. Wait, what?
Did you say Android detector?
Oh, hey, you know what show's easy to find?
We're not done with this, Walter. The In Session Film Podcast.
That's right, Tim. The In Session Film Podcast is JD and Brendan.
Wouldn't mind detecting Brendan, if you know what I mean.
What was that, Tim?
What? Nothing.
Each week, the In Session Film Podcast chooses a movie to review.
Then creates the top 3 list based on what they just saw.
This week, the In Session Film Podcast is reviewing the Renee Zellweger biopic, Judy.
And a top 3 list of musicals and film.
You can find their show on Apple Podcasts by searching for, you guessed it, the In Session Film Podcast.
Or on the web at InSessionFilm.com.
So if you're in the mood for more great movie reviews and discussion,
then check out the In Session Film Podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Or on the web at InSessionFilm.com.
So, Wally, did you say Android detector?
Yeah, because we may have a bit more to worry about than just the hopper bot.
Oh. Wait. What?
Oh, look now, someone's done your praying too. Who'll make the shoes for your feet? Who'll make the clothes that you wear? Who'll take the promise that you don't have to keep? Oh, look now, it ain't you and me.
He brings the popcorn. She brings the roses. Subject Cinema, a tasty new film topic each week with a side order of film reviews.
Yum.
T.C. Kirkham.
But I'm Jim.
Kim Brown.
What?
Over 500,000 listeners, and you could be the next one. SubjectCinema.com. Real movies for real people.
Take the promise that you don't have.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Okay, let's talk about Superman 3.
Now, we all know that last week, half of this great nation of ours almost bit the bullet. If it wasn't for this man here. And all I can say is, thank the Lord for Superman. Superman, you saved our bacon, and I'd like to show our gratitude. This is a small token of our appreciation to show to you for saving us from a chemical plant disaster.
Thank you very much, General. It's very nice. Thank you.
The plot, and don't blame me, this is from IMDb. Synthetic kryptonite laced with tar splits Superman in two. Good Clark Kent and bad Man of Steel. The director,
That's all you get.
Richard Lester. The actors, Christopher Reeve, Richard Pryor, Margot Kidder, really, is the third rated on this, and more. Wally. So, Wally, I have to imagine this was a childhood staple for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
It was in rotation when I was a kid. I really don't remember how I felt about it as a kid because, like, as when I was younger, Superman 2 was a movie that I wanted to watch more than anything. That was the one that I watched on heavy repeat because I got to see Superman doing all sorts of super things and fighting other super people. Like, it was I think the action in Superman 2 is just for the time period and all that, what they had for like effects and how they could actually composite scenes, I think it's still great to this day. And then there's this, and I don't remember how I felt about this as a child, believe it or not. I really have, all I can remember is the scene where Brainiac actually shows up temporarily, that being kind of scary as a kid. But you know what? Damn if I didn't have fun watching this movie. I had a smile on my face ear to ear. This movie is ridiculous. It is absolutely absurd. But the thing is, it's also very close to a comic book movie. Stuff like all the stuff that happens in this movie happens.
You don't say.
Like,
it's a
early
comic book
comics.
movie? No shit.
But like all the banana stuff that you see that goes on in here happens in comic books all the time, especially around this period of time.
No wonder
this is before comic books really matured and really came into their own later on in the 90s. This is like peak comic book movie. It's ridiculous. It's the only really thing I can say about this. It really does seem like there's two different movies going on at the same time. You have a Richard Pryor movie about a guy who's just trying to get his life back on track, and a Superman movie at the same time, and somehow they both collided. Like green kryptonite laced with tar somehow smooshed these two things together, and this is what you got in the end. Because there is some absurdity. Some of the stuff I absolutely love, like the fact that Robert Vaughn is so rich that he has a ski slope on top of his roof. On the roof of his building.
You mean Robert Vaughn, man who likes to pimp out commercials for local law offices?
That's right.
Like D. Oliver and Morgan?
Yep. Because you have to tell them you mean business.
Hermano, like how much did you see in this when you were younger?
Okay, this may be, along with Part 4, the two least watched Superman films. Part 4 for different reasons than this one. Part 4 is just, I'll wait till we watch it again, but I remember Part 4 being by far the worst one I'd ever seen as far as Superman films go. This one, the reason I didn't watch it a lot as a kid is because the end scene kind of scarred me as a kid. It was in a Large Marge from Pee-wee's Big Adventure type way.
Yes.
The scene with the computer goes haywire and drags Robert Vaughn's sister in and kind of turns her into like a fucking cyborg. Like that so like blew my brain apart. Like I as a kid I was like so scarred by that I still call back to it, much like I do Large Marge in the eyeball scene from The Gate. Like those were the three scenes in films that totally destroyed me as a kid and really like were ingrained in my brain as like, holy shit, like this is gonna stick with me for my entire life. But watching it this time, I was like, wow, it's pretty ridiculous. And what the hell was I even thinking? But because it's so short, it's like it literally lasts like 3 minutes, and it's like, but just the effects of it, like seeing the wires drag her in, and of course as a kid I'm like, what the fuck, no, I don't know what the hell a computer is. Like, I'm like, I don't think anybody making this film knew what a computer was. But like, just watching that happen, I was just like, holy crap. Like, I don't know, it blew my mind. But that's my early thoughts. But like, yeah, I agree a lot with Wally. It's weird because it does feel like they kind of couldn't decide between making a Superman film and a Richard Pryor comedy, and they decided like, hey, why don't we do both at the same time?
Why don't we do both?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's weird because I was a fan of Richard Pryor as a young kid. Again, I watched films way too young. Like, I remember watching Moving, a Richard Pryor film that I really love. I watched, I think, some of his stand-up specials along with the Eddie Murphy ones.
Wow.
So I was familiar with him. And I thought he was funny and stuff. And of course, I'd seen the stuff with him and Gene Wilder as well too. A lot of those films they did together, and I was always a fan, and I was excited. I think, seeing that he was going to be in this film, a Superman film, which I also was a fan of.
You cannot tell me this movie would have been infinitely better if it also had Gene Wilder in it.
I think
no. If you're gonna put comedy in here, you have to put somebody like Gene Wilder to play off of him.
Like a straight man type.
Yes.
I think they were trying to do that with Superman at times, like, but
Well,
I think it would have been nice, but it would have felt like one of those like sitcom things where like two completely different sets of characters happen to meet all of a sudden on the same show. That used to be like a kind of a gimmick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would have felt, I think, even more gimmicky than this feels. But it is ridiculous. It is like completely overly comedic, and I think a negative way. Like the whole entire opening of this film, while I appreciate the staging of it, I'm like, what the hell is this? I did not remember this at all. Like the entire hijinks that are happening on the street to open this film.
You know what it is?
The Rube Goldberg thing.
No, it's like a Jacques Tati film.
It did feel like that, yeah, a little bit, but not as well staged as the Jacques Tati thing. But like completely ridiculous to open a comic book film. Like, I'm like, holy shit, like what the hell is this? It's not even like the typical, like, we're gonna set up the new villain in the film, like something's gonna land on Earth and all of a sudden it's gonna be like, the new Superman villain or something. No, it's like a fucking Jacques Tati film done poorly.
Can we also talk about how awful the credits are over that scene?
Yes. It literally feels like, what it reminded me of? Like, how like when you learn a new program, like when I first learned Photoshop, like literally all I did was replace people's heads on their bodies. Like, it's literally all I did. It really felt like someone had just learned how to use After Effects and learned how to move things in 3D space. And it was just like, I'm just going to tilt this slightly and have it look like it's fading into the background. And it looked so awful.
It's a bastardization of the first two opening credit scenes.
Those are iconic and really well done. This is like this is like somebody let their 8-year-old son do it. Like, it was so bad.
And also the end credits. The end credits are awful too. I had looked down at my phone and then I was looking up, and all of a sudden I see these credits coming towards the screen and layered in a horrific fashion. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Tim, I didn't even stick around for the credits. This thing was off as soon as it ended. I was like, I mean, it is fun on some level. Like, yes, I did think it was funny to see this guy with a ski slope on the top of his building. I did like, the Richard Pryor stuff, aside from being in a Superman film. It was nice to kind of revisit him as a performer and an actor. Like, I hadn't seen one of his films in a long time. And
you guys,
I loved him in this. Like, he was perfect.
You guys are glossing over the ski slope thing. Let's talk about the logistics of this thing. How does that happen? How does it work? Is it helicoptered in? Is there a snow machine? I didn't see a snow machine. How does it work? Tell me how it works.
Metropolis
Ross Webster
like?
only takes the best snow from the Alpines.
And
has it specifically shipped to him.
And what was that somebody said about the big from Metropolis? The big apricot? Was it? Is it Annette O'Toole who said that?
I think so.
She said the big apricot. I'm like, what the fuck is this? What is happening here? What is this movie? Guys.
I think you're also glossing over another line, too, that Robert Vaughn says at one point. He says, Columbia is only known for two things, coffee and something else. Really, one of them is One of the and the other one is coffee or something like that.
Oh God.
I'm like, oh, that's a cocaine reference. That's a good one.
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever seen this movie. I
Oh,
don't.
that's right. You hadn't seen this movie before.
I've
Tim.
seen clips. I've seen portions of Part 4. I had not seen one single scene of this movie. Somehow, some way, it avoided me. I have no idea how it avoided me. 1983, I would have been 5. If I saw this when I was 6 or 7, I would have fucking loved this movie. I know it.
See?
I know I would have loved this movie. This movie is god awful. It's so horrible. Christopher Reeve is a goddamn miracle. His ability to hold his head high in this absolute dreck is award-worthy. I cannot salute him enough for how well he carries himself through this shit. He's amazing. Anytime Richard Pryor was on screen, I wanted to turn this off.
Really?
Clearly inserted to make this some sort of hybrid monster of adventure and comedy, just like you said. But for the worse, it's like, okay, he makes 2 clear references to the films, the theme song and the motion of ripping open the shirt. That's nobody would have any clue about in this universe. How does he know this? How does he know about ripping open the shirt? How does he know about the theme song? Tell me.
The theme song, I can't explain. I think the ripping open the shirt thing potentially could have been a newspaper photo thing or something. I don't know.
Nope. I don't buy it.
No, it's because Richard Pryor is actually like a straight up, for the first time in like, but that's not a non-Kryptonian menace. He is more brilliant than Lex Luthor is. The greatest criminal mind of the 20th century. He's been outdone by Gus Gorman.
Look, I will say there are some good ideas in this movie. I do like the idea of an evil supercomputer and the evil Superman. They're not the worst things, but it's how you get there that they make no sense. Like the supercomputer really isn't played upon until the last act, and even then, it isn't much of a factor, except for that one scene. And evil Superman, like, how do you get there? How do you get there from this synthetic to all of a sudden he's bad? And the first thing he does to show how much of an asshole he is go to the leaning tower of Pisa? What?
And straighten it. Yep.
What the hell is this?
Superman's not really. I'm positive Superman is not evil. Superman's just a dick. Like basically that weird kryptonite just turned him into just a dickhead. He's just an asshole.
He's a bro.
He's not really evil because like evil would be like Zod, Zaora,
right,
and Nod. Those 3 guys there. Those are evil Kryptonians. Superman is just being an asshole because he can. Like the blowing out the Olympic torch. This is like, what do you do? I'm Superman. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
There was one uncomfortable scene when he sits on the couch with Lana.
Oh, there's another uncomfortable scene where he takes the woman off the Statue of Liberty and then beds her. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and then in a plot twist, she's like, Superman. He's like, I have no idea who you are.
It's like Me, Myself, and Irene. Seriously, this movie is like Geostorm and Under Siege 2 rolled into one.
He's at the bar and he's like, it'd be really fun right now if I just started flicking peanuts at everything like a shooting gallery.
What an asshole!
Fuck your bar. Fuck your bar. Fuck your liquor. Oh, you know what? Fuck that mirror. I'm gonna heat vision it.
That junkyard scene, I remember scarring me a bit as well.
Really?
Like, I think, yeah, do I remember correctly? I just watched this last night. I'm already losing my mind. Like, he throws the evil Superman to the compactor, right?
No, he puts Clark Kent into the compactor.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was. Yes. That scarred me too, because you see him like getting crushed, and you're like, oh shit.
Look, like I like overall. I like that scene. I like the idea of fighting with himself. But and look, I'm not going to get hung up on logistics because we've abandoned any sense of reality in the first 2 movies when you have him spinning around the Earth to turn back time, and then throwing. Completely abandoning any kind of Superman logic or whatever while he's battling everybody in his Fortress of Solitude in the second movie by cellophane wrapper S or making multiple versions of himself. And I'm like, I have no idea where these powers came from. So I'm not going to get hung up on Clark Kent, splitting from evil Superman or douchebag Superman. Because overall, like I said, I like the concept of that idea, and that scene right there, I think is fine. It's really cool because it's also because of Christopher Reeve and his ability to play those two parts so wonderfully. His like you just have to put a little bit of stubble on him, and then his growl, his menacing look. It's amazing. He looks the part so well and he plays it so well that I can't fault the scene. It's just how you get there. Like there's no transition of him struggling with him turning to a douchebag. There's just he suddenly is. And there's no internal struggle. So because that's not what the movie is concerned about. That's not what the movie is about, because it's about so many fucking things. It wants to be a comedy. It wants to be a superhero movie, because there are. Wally, I can see why you like this movie so much, because Superman does super things in this movie. A lot.
Yes, even if they're the most inconvenient ways of doing things.
Right. Like when he goes to save the burning factory and
Yes!
he goes to the lake and he freezes a lake. That's a great concept. He does everything that you would want from a Superman movie. It's probably ripped from a comic book page, and I appreciate that. But there's so much. This movie is so many things. Like even Robert Vaughn and his mistress are just Lex Luthor and Miss Tessmacher redux. That's all they are.
Yes, she's not a very good version of Miss Tessmacher either.
But she is apparently smarter than everybody else, and it is playing everybody else for fools. But they never really comes to play by the end of the movie.
Nope. But there's a great line on the trivia page for this. It says, considering how much of this film is played for laughs, if you forget this film is actually a Superman movie, it actually plays as a straight Richard Pryor cybercrime comedy vehicle with Christopher Reeve as a nemesis.
You have to imagine these are two different scripts that force themselves into each other.
Well, there were, and I mean, it goes back to Christopher Reeve not wanting to even be in this movie. Like, he read the script and he's like, nope, don't want to do it. They were gonna put Tony Danza in as Superman.
Get out.
Yes, that was almost the case for this. Tony fucking Danza.
Wow.
Oh my God! I kind of now wish that Christopher Reeve had turned it down.
Well, they allowed him to come back and do some rewrites. But they also did Margot Kidder real dirty, because she and Christopher Reeve both wanted to walk after Donner got fired, and they felt that they needed Reeve, and so they did everything they could to bring him back. But for her, they just wrote her off in the first 2 minutes of the movie, and she doesn't come back till the last 2 minutes.
Well, that's one thing we talked about a little bit when you and I, Wally, talked about part 2, in that the Richard Lester cut that I saw, because Richard Lester, the director of this movie, had come on to direct the rest of what was left over for Superman 2 after Donner left, and it shows, because the version that I watched, the Richard Lester cut, is horrible. It's awful, and this movie is he shows no improvement. He shows no improvement in his directing abilities. Like Annette O'Toole as Lana, I like her. I like her as an actress. I like her playing the role, but I'm not really sure what the point of her relationship with Clark is in this movie, especially when you sideline Lois for the entire film. There's no See, if you have Lois in this movie more, then there's the dynamic between the three of them, like some sort of love triangle or whatever. That if you want to play that up, that's fine.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and doesn't play up until the end of the movie, and even then, it's just like, okay, we're done. What? Jimmy Olsen is a fucking moron.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the other thing too is Superman goes about doing super things, which is one of the things I love about Superman. I want to see Superman doing super things, but the way he goes about doing these super things is an absolute riot. All right, he's in the burning building. There's the acid. I could blow on the acid and just chill this entire room out, but I feel like showing off, and so I'm going to go and freeze half the lake and bring it over, and then just drop it on everybody. No warning, by the way. I'm not gonna warn you I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna drop this giant, massive ice chunk out of the sky. It should put the fire out. But also, another great line too is the fire chief, where he's like, "How can I help it?" He's like, "Get this man a helmet." Oh wait, it's you. Never mind the helmet.
It did feel like the writing in this film. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but even for a film of this caliber, it felt like beneath it. But I gotta completely disagree with Tim. I loved Richard Pryor in this. Like everything I loved about him, I remember from all his other films. I was so glad he was in this because I think he added actual good comedy. Where I think a lot of the other stuff they were doing outside of him that they were trying to be comedic, it just fell flat because it was like asking people that are not comedians to be funny, and it just wasn't working. But Richard Pryor is like a master. Like everything he's doing. Like I feel like at times it even felt like he was ad-libbing. Like he was just kind of doing it. They just told him to run with it, and he was just knocking it out of the park. Like if not for him in this film is probably easily worse than the fourth one.
So you're saying you're okay with the scene where he is pretending to be a general and he hands the kryptonite?
Oh God.
Yes.
Oh my
100%.
God.
That was so weird, but it also makes sense for his character too.
Whose character?
Richard Pryor's character.
Why? How?
Because like you see him in the very beginning of the movie, he's had like these multiple jobs. He's tried to do all these things. He hasn't found his niche yet, and so he's just winging it, hoping that he doesn't get caught.
Okay, and you're saying that he pulls off that routine well?
Well, no, but nobody in the crowd seems to doubt him.
Oh my God!
And then he gives Superman a work of art, who's just like, all right, yeah, thanks. And like I think the only thing that could have thrown that scene off is if he like started doing like that leery look where you're like, is it happening? Is it happening? But it doesn't until later on.
Look, I went into this movie expecting it to be bad, knowing its reputation, but it's just like when I say I want to turn this off because when Richard Pryor was on screen, it was really because he doesn't need to be in a movie like this. A movie like this doesn't need Richard Pryor. It's just not necessary. I think it was
an interesting, different type of. I wouldn't even call him a villain necessarily.
No.
It's almost like he's like this weird. I don't even know how to describe him. Like he's just kind of caught in the middle. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like sort of doing like a fish out of water type thing where he's caught in like events that. You know, none of what's happening is what he intended. Like he doesn't want to hurt Superman. He's just like
he's blackmailed.
Kind of like, he's what?
He's blackmailed.
Yeah, yes. Essentially. But like I don't know, it's weird because he's finally found something he's good at.
See, the fact that
he doesn't want to let it go.
The fact that nobody can really fully explain, his role in this movie, I think says a lot.
No, I mean, you can explain it as someone who's just caught in the middle of like a Lex Luthor light in Superman, like the typical type of villain that Superman would deal with in the comics, like someone who's like got the means and now is using someone like Richard Pryor to conduct those means.
You just reminded me. He uses tar because he's looking at his fucking cigarette box.
Pack.
And then
subtle nod to don't smoke.
Okay,
little
sure.
message for the kids there.
Right. And then at the end of the movie, when they actually have real kryptonite on him, they just explain it to we found the missing ingredient. Ha ha ha.
Well, the computer found the missing ingredient.
How?
Because that's what it does. It finds everybody's weakness.
Boo.
Tim.
That's what it does.
Boo.
Tim, you know what you're going to get with the next one? You're going to get exactly your wish. You're going to get a terrible Superman film without Richard Pryor to elevate it.
Great.
Because the fourth one, if you think this is bad,
oh yeah,
you're in for it. But wait till Richard Pryor is not there to save you.
All right, can we talk about? We're going to talk about this. The villain trying to shoot Superman with missiles while Pac-Man is playing.
Yes.
Like a video game, controllers shooting missiles at Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And then there's a thing in the trivia page that says this is like the first Superman movie that doesn't involve nukes, and they're wrong because one of the characters at the sister clearly calls the missile the big shark looking missile an NX, which is a nuke.
All right, I can't believe we haven't mentioned this already, but you guys do remember the film Office Space.
Yes. This is the opening of this movie.
Yes, he did the same thing in Office Space.
Yeah, they actually reference the plot of Superman 3. And it's weird to say it's the plot of Superman 3 because it's like a tiny bit of Superman 3 where, Richard Pryor's character, his company, the whole thing with rounding up pennies or whatever. And like there's like these fractions of cents that just get floating around.
How is he just realizing he's a genius at computers? Oh, God.
It's weird the way it's depicted. It's like he just is. It's almost like he's being trained on his first day at the job, and he just has like a knack for it. It's that simple. Like he's just super good at computers right off the bat, and does something that the teacher didn't think was even possible.
Right. He's like the Rain Man of of using computers.
Of computers, basically.
Fine.
Yeah. He finds his niche. You're essentially seeing the origin story of like an
Brainiac.
Sort of. I mean, like a villain of sorts, but an unintended villain.
How much better would this movie if it was Richard Pryor who becomes Brainiac? How much better would this movie have been?
It wouldn't have made sense because the little knowledge I have of Brainiac is that he's an actual alien, or some sort of being from outer space.
He's an actual alien who's also been in the form of a robot too a few times.
Whatever. You know, I always say screw the source material. Change it so that he is the sole villain, that there's nobody else, and that his computer superpowers enabled him to fuse with a supercomputer, and he becomes a Brainiac somehow, some way. I don't care how different it is than the source material. Right? Yes? No?
Yeah, I'd be all right with that.
I'm not on board. I'm jumping ship.
and then you get this. Good job, Hermano.
Hey, I was mostly on board with this. I'm not going to say it's a good movie, but
you have to agree. You have to agree how great Christopher Reeve is.
He's amazing. For my money, he's still my favorite Superman. I think his grasp of what makes Superman Superman, and also the Clark Kent thing, and how he's like, for my money, he's also the best actor to have played Superman. Like, he just had such a good command of the superhero aspect of it and the how to hide it. I will
say, if you're going to play up the idea of these two completely opposite people of Kal-El and Clark Kent, then yes, he does a phenomenal job of playing the two roles. Absolutely.
And weirdly, for me, it's the most believable that people would never see through this. Like, you know, it is comical, and people always point to it as like, oh, all he's doing is he's wearing glasses and a suit, and or like a traditional suit, and like he's able to fool people just by being super nerdy, essentially, and like, you know,
he's literally changing his posture and mannerisms.
It's the most believable. In the other films, it literally just seems like it's someone wearing glasses. I think Brandon Routh came close, but it seemed like he was more doing an impersonation of Christopher Reeves, and that film is essentially a love letter to the Christopher Reeves films. Mm-hmm. But like, you know, with the most recent Supermans, like with Henry Cavill and stuff like that, they don't even go there. Like, Clark Kent is just essentially nothing. He's basically hiding in the shadows, and doesn't have to play that up. You know, that whole thing of you know, having to hide your true self.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Christopher Reeves was so good at this, and like, I mean, aside from Richard Pryor, he's clearly the other best thing about it.
I don't know if I can even say. I think I would put Annette O'Toole as the second best part of this movie.
She's good, but she's sort of doing like she's playing off the Clark Kent thing really well, because she seems like she's almost like the lady version of Clark Kent. Like, she's sort of absent-minded. You know, she doesn't have to hide anything, but she's playing a very comedic, kind of like lady version of Clark Kent.
It's funny. All I could really think of was her role as Beverly Marsh in the It miniseries. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else? What do you guys? How do you like how this movie ended? Did you like it? Yes.
Margot Kidder definitely. It was weird because I actually thought she was in the film and there was a love triangle, but I cannot believe that she was literally the bookends of this film. That was it. Like, she was on screen for maybe like 5 minutes.
Yep. A total of 12 lines.
12. Wow, that's amazing.
Because after you know, getting into it over the whole Donner Farm, they're like, all right, we don't need you. Bye.
And she's in the fourth movie, right?
I honestly can't remember. I'm gonna look it up.
Huh. How this made enough money to warrant a fourth film is beyond me.
Oh yeah, it says she's in it.
Well, it came in third behind like Return of the Jedi, which also came out the same year, and
this movie made
came out
almost $60 million.
Yeah.
Any other things you guys want to mention before we grade this? Oh God, the credits are awful. Jesus Christ.
The credits are awful.
At least
at the beginning is stupid.
At least the score is an improvement. You know, over the second one. The score was butchered in the second movie. but I think the score is better in this movie.
I would say that.
Hmm.
I think they've improved the music, but I mean, there's really not much else to say with this. This is very straightforward, point A to point B. Not a heck of a lot of side plot going on outside of Superman being a dick through the middle part of the movie.
What about the whole Italy thing, where the obvious green screen and you have these two generic, stereotypical Italian people?
Oh yeah, I was like, oh, well, that's actually the first thing I said when that scene popped. I'm like, well, I guess we're green screening, huh? Then you see the Pisa scene. And I'm like, and if you think about it, Superman is still a dick in Pisa. He's never really helped anything. Like if he goes there, they're gonna be like, get the hell out of here.
If he just pays attention that they've already changed their souvenirs.
He's just like, I fixed it again. Bye.
Tell me what your memories are of the fourth movie. Did you at least like it despite how bad it is?
Oh, I remember very little of the fourth movie outside of Superman moving the moon.
Oh God.
I remember
and that's what you're in for, Tim. Superman moving the moon.
I remember the villain, Nuclear Man.
Sure. Yep.
And I remember even as a kid, and I think this is true, that the actor who's actually portraying Nuclear Man, they like dubbed his voice.
Yes, he had a terrible speaking voice, so all of his lines are dubbed over.
Yeah, and I remember it being very obvious. Like
it is
almost like you're watching like a Chinese kung fu film in the 70s. Like the English dubbing just wasn't, obviously great. So I remember at times it felt like that, like the mouth and the voice wasn't syncing really well. And I just remember it being boring, and that was like criminal back then for me for a comic book film.
This movie, Superman 3, was just over 2 hours long, and Superman 4 is 90 minutes.
Yeah, and even at 90 minutes, I remember there being a lot of
longer.
Have you seen what the IMDb rating on Superman 4 is? 3.7.
3.7.
Oh yeah. This is a 5, Tim. This is a 5 Superman movie. We're gonna go down to 3.7 to finish this one off.
I guess the only positive I can say about Part 4 is that the visionary director of Iron Eagle directed it. So you got that to look forward to, Tim.
He has a cool name, Sidney J. Fury.
Yeah. He got this film off the
strength
of Iron
Speaking
Eagle.
of cool names, did you see the post on Twitter of Kurt Russell's Escape from New York stunt double?
I did.
Did you catch this, Romano?
No.
His stunt double was named Dick Warlock.
Kurt Russell's stunt double was named Dick Warlock?
Oh, yeah.
That's his real name?
That's his real name. How
that's what he goes by.
Amazing is that?
That's amazing, because technically a warlock is a male witch, so he's like a dick witch.
That's what I'm gonna call my my food company. Actually, it's gonna be Chippendale centered.
Is it gonna involve a lot of pickles and sandwiches?
That's gonna be our big running joke.
A lot of mayo.
Everything comes with a pickle.
A lot of mayo just oozing out. Anyways, let's get into grades. Wally, what grade would you give this?
I give this a solid B+.
Get the fuck
because
out
I
of
really had fun with this. I know this movie is ridiculous and it's absurd, but I had so much fun watching this again. I was like, no, you know what? I know this movie's not good, but I'm having so much fun just watching this. And I think it's because I was also kind of doing an MST3K with Caitlin while we were watching it too, like pointing out just ridiculous shit. I'm like, you could have just done that, Soups. But I think that lent it to it. It was also getting to share it with her, so she got to watch it with me and just see how silly this thing would get. So I give it a solid B+.
There's no way I could give a movie featuring Christopher Reeve this great a D. So I have to bump this up to a C-, and it's only for Christopher Reeve because of how great he is. C-, Romano.
Okay, I use this film as fuel for every time I think that I'm watching something with my kids and I'm like, I can't believe they like this crap. I'm reminded that I used to like Superman 3. And kids have not really evolved, and we just like dumb shit when we're kids. So, again, love Richard Pryor, love Christopher Reeves. I wish they would have done many films together, much like Pryor and Wilder. I want to give it like a solid B-.
Wow.
Non-ironic B-.
You guys are so generous. You really are.
Hey man, it holds a place in my heart. It in my brain, I'm still thinking about how I was so scarred by that computer cyborg scene.
All right, that does it for this episode of the First Time Watchers podcast. Donate via patreon.com/firsttimewatchers or buy stuff at zazzle.com/firsttimewatchers.
You can talk to us on Twitter at the number 1 STTimeWatchers on Twitter.
Or write to us at our email, firsttimewatchers@gmail.com.
If you have any suggestions of movies for us to watch, please send a tweet or an email. What did I say? Oh, I missed something. Hey, download our episodes on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. We love reviews. See, I could have skipped it. I could have skipped it, and it wouldn't have made a difference, right, guys?
Reviews and feedback are what keeps this show alive.
Sure. Hey, let's recommend a movie, guys. Wally.
All right, I'm going to go with another movie that came out in 1983. This is another favorite of mine. Introduced the wife to this a while back, and we still have in-jokes about it. And it is written and directed by the gentleman of the Monty Python crew, and that is The Meaning of Life. The comedy team takes a look at life in all of its stages in their own uniquely silly way. It's actually shown through the lens of a bunch of fish in a tank in a fancy restaurant. And it gets weird from there. But I think it's one of the funnier Python movies. I think it's actually probably even funnier than The Holy Grail.
You want a funny movie? Something I wasn't introduced until well after it was released in 1992, which is just before, apparently, Christopher Reeve's horse accident. And that is Noises Off.
Yes!
A traveling theater group finds so much action going on behind the scenes, they almost ruined the performance. Now, check out this cast. Carol Burnett, Michael Caine, Denholm Elliott, Julie Haggerty, Mary Lou Henner, Mark Lynn Baker, Christopher Reeve, John Ritter, Nicolette Sheridan. Amazing cast and an amazingly hilarious film. It is one of those. It's directed by Peter Bogdanovich, and I think he does a great job of capturing the backstage goings on of a theater group and how the relationships work with. In conjunction with the play and getting ready for the play, and then when the actual play is going on, and how he gets the behind the scenes and the slapstick comedy along with just verbal and visual comedy is amazing. Hermano, I know it's touch and go with comedies for you. I think you might find a lot to appreciate with this movie. It's a really, really funny movie. I haven't seen it for about 15 years, I think, but I remember laughing my ass off the first time I watched it and wondering how I had never heard of this movie before. Noises Off is great.
I was just about to say, I don't think I've ever heard of it.
Yeah. What you got, Hermano?
All right. A mere 10 years after Superman 3 came out, another Superman film came out that you guys might not be aware of.
Oh.
From 1993, The Meteor Man. Do you guys remember The Meteor Man?
Is this Marlon Wayans?
Oh, Tim. Unintentionally racist.
Oh, no.
Directed and written by Robert Townsend. A different black comedian, Tim. What were you trying to say by saying it was Marlon Wayans?
Oh, no.
Tim, you might want to delete that.
Oh, no.
Or just leave it in. Let people know your true self.
I swear there's a quote-unquote superhero movies featuring Marlon Wayans. I really do.
There may be.
Blank Man, that's it, yes.
Nice save, Tim. Anyway, Meteor Man is not that film. A high school teacher from a troubled inner city Washington, D.C. neighborhood becomes a superpowered hero and takes on the gang that has been terrorizing his streets. Tim, you want to talk about casts? Robert Townsend, Eddie Griffin, Robert Guillaume, James Earl Jones, Don Cheadle, Bill Cosby.
What?
Might want to leave that one out.
Sinbad.
Big Daddy Kane. And more. Luther Vandross. Now that's a cast. Anyway, I remember renting this many times when I was young. Basically, a superhero for the inner city kids who weren't really represented much on screen. Black Superman, essentially, but pretty funny. I remember enjoying this as a kid. I was only, 13 when I was watching this. Haven't seen it in many years, but I remember enjoying it and liked the kind of, much like Superman 3, a kind of a comedic take on superheroes and with a touch of heart, Tim.
Okay.
I recommend it.
If you say so. Stay tuned for our next episode. We'll be discussing the newest Joaquin Phoenix film, Joker.
That's the First Time Watchers podcast because we like to watch.
Plus, he don't treat you right. He keeps you crying all night. See, he's like your kryptonite. I came to give you that strength so you can leave him behind. You could start all over, just press rewind. Cause he don't understand that you one of a kind. So sweet, so sexy, and just so fine. I will fight till my death just to make you mine. I will never neglect you, never have time to stress you, and always respect you. Girl, you like a hidden treasure, and I promise to love you from now until forever. Para siempre, mija. Te prometo, te voy a amar hasta la muerte. I can love you like no one can. I can be your Superman. Just take my hand, let's fly away. I promise I'll be there every day. Just close your eyes, let's start to fly. I'm gonna love you until I die. Until the day.
My son was playing with my mic. He's gotten into playing with Microsoft Paint, and he was just like playing on my computer, doodling on Microsoft Paint, and all of a sudden I look over and he's like messing with all the knobs on my mic. I'm like, ah.
Did you literally go ah?
Basically, yeah. I'm like a walking cartoon character. Each week, the In Session Film Podcast